Welcome back. I hope that you all very much enjoyed the first day of our conference and also had a chance to enjoy the evening. My name is Alexandra Yester, and I head UNICEF's work on social policy and inclusion. I also have had the pleasure of working together with the technical working group who put together this conference and brought us all together here. So before I proceed, because I'm not sure we'll have another opportunity, I wanted to ask the members of the technical working group just to stand for a moment to be acknowledged. So could the members please stand who have participated in all of our calls? Come on, you know who you are. It's been a long road to get here, and we're all very pleased to see you here. Yesterday, we heard a remarkable consensus from the outset about the commitment to supporting social protection in the difficult context that we're discussing. And we also heard an eagerness to learn from and apply what we learn here. We were challenged. We were challenged to consider the use of evidence to support the work of social protection in the context of protracted crisis and displacement. And we were reminded that that evidence is still somewhat thin on the ground. Stefan Durkan got us to contemplate what's different about social protection in fragile and conflict-affected settings. And we heard perspectives from individuals, affected countries, and development partners on their experiences and expectations. And then we had the opportunity to hear in detail from governments and their partners about their efforts to use social protection or to link it with humanitarian cash transfers to address the impacts of protracted crises on people's lives, on adults' livelihoods, on children's nutrition and education, on everyone's safety, health, inclusion, and future opportunities. We also heard from researchers about the evidence that does exist, about what doesn't, and we were challenged to look and to identify what the evidence gaps are and to make sure that we address them in the work that we take forward. Just a few takeaways from me. We heard a real consensus on the potential value of social protection systems to mitigate the impact of crisis. We heard a strong preference for the use of long-term rather than parallel systems because of the value they bring both for the resilience of the communities that they're meant to reach, as well as the systems which are meant to support people longer term. We really understood that short-term thinking and planning doesn't really work in protracted crises that have been going on for years. A longer-term vision and a clear roadmap are needed. We understood the challenge that is created, both for countries and indeed for partners, given the different mechanisms for development and humanitarian support. We need to bridge not only the actions, we actually need to bridge the architecture. And that's another theme we may want to keep in mind as we move forward. The humanitarian funding and tools are not really designed for dealing with longer-term protracted crises. And we may find that's the case in the circumstances we discussed today as well. Social protection works best generally, and certainly under the settings which were under discussion yesterday, when it delivers more than cash. Support for Cash Plus was strong, and we noted that we needed to focus on the different contexts, that what that would mean in different contexts can be quite different, what that plus consists of. We also, perhaps bringing home a point many times, heard about the lack of sufficient evidence on what makes social protection work in context of fragility and displacement. But we also felt that that should not stop us from trying. We saw that it's worthwhile to be opportunistic, to start from what exists, whether it's an existing social protection system or the components of humanitarian programming that are relevant for building that system. So today, we turn to the what ifs. What if the support systems are not in place and they're not successfully activated? What if, despite humanitarian efforts, conditions are so intolerable that families or indeed individuals, as we met Judith yesterday, are forced to flee? Forced displacement today is a reality on a scale not seen in half a century. At the same time, social protection mechanisms are far more widespread, and their potential to support effective, longer-term responses has become increasingly clear. But rather than describe these experiences or the potential of social protection, I wanted to share a few videos to help keep the voices and experiences of affected people at the forefront of our minds. The first three of these short videos provide lived experiences during flight and resettlement. And the final one addresses some important concerns that often arise regarding social protection, along with the important positive contribution that social protection can bring to people's lives. So now, let's watch. Lights, please.
ما بحب أزعل حدا. ليش بدي أزعلك؟ إذا بدي أزعلك بدي أحكي لك قصة ما طلعنا على البلد. كانت كتير كبيرة. أنا أول ما شفتها خفت. بعد ما طلعت حبيتها، ما خفت أكتر. أيوة، بعد ما مشينا شوي المي دخلت على البلم، وكل ما نمشي يطرش علينا مي. أنا كنت حاسة أنا وأمي نغرق يطب البلم هيك بس لجوا نغرق. كل ما بمشي هو مش كل ما بمشي هيك نقرة صغيرة، كل ما يمشي يطرش علينا مي. وأنا كنت لابسة هيك مسكن نفسي، وكنت بردانة كتير كتير كتير. بعد ما غرقت خفت كتير 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 كتير. في وحدة بيت كعتها شنطتنا وهي بالها شنطتها، شلت عطتها للزلمة كبار بالبحر، وكان كل أغراضي جداد. بعد ما لبست لبسة، أي أول بس مرة لبست لبسة، بعدين شلحته، بعدين قلت لماما خليني ألبسه بركي مثلا حدا كبرنا أغراضنا بالبلم. قلت لا، ما حينكبوا يا ماما. قلت لها أنا ما حطيتها بالشنطة. طلع كلامي صح، نكبوا. بعد ما طلعت الشمس طلعت على أمي، لقيتها تحت هيك بركة على المي. لأرفع أمي رفعتها لأمي. خلص البنزين، أجى هذا تبع صياد السمك، شدنا على الشاطئ. بعد ما وصلنا على الشاطئ شقينا البلم، قضينا الحزامات وطلعنا على الجبل. طلعنا على الجبل كتير كتير كتير. هذا بس أطلع من جهة أقول خلص، أرجع أطلع. في ما بعرف وين نمنا، والله نسيت. أنا ما كنت متذكرة كتير. بعد ما وصلنا على هذا نفضنا حالنا، صرنا نروح على الشرطة. بعدين ما رحنا على الشرطة قالوا لنا روحوا. كتير كتير مشتاقة، يعني اشتقت لها لمدرستي اللي بسوريا. أيوة، اشتقت لها لأنستي، وكانت أنستي كتير حبابة، يعني ما كانت تزعلني طول، وكتير رفقة عندي كان. بس هلا ما هضل حدا. إن شاء الله نرجع مثل الأول. إن شاء الله ترجع سوريا مثل الأول.
أنا كنت كتير بحب أتطوع وأعلم، فعندي رفيقتي كانت متطوعة بكاريتاس، وخبرتني وقالت إنه بيستقبلوا متطوعين، فجيت وبعدني لهلا من وقتها.
لما رحنا كنا بسوريا كان منهجنا كلياته عربي، بس هون انجليش. كان هيك يصعب علي الانجليش. اجيت لهون ما كنت انا اعرف ولا شيء انجليش، هي علمتني كل شيء.
بدعمهم معنويا، يعني بصير احكيهم عن المستقبل، اهميه يخلصوا علمهم، انه العلم هو أكتر وسيلة لينجحوا ليطلعوا من هالحياة كلها.
كنت دوم بفكر إنه وصلت على الماي وش بده يصير، شلون بده يستقبلونا، وين بدنا نروح وشو بده يصير معنا. أنا اسمي مصطفى، عمري 14 سنة وجاي من سوريا. حاسس حياتي حلوة يعني مبسوط فيها، تحس فيها أمان بس أبوي بعراق، أختي في واحدة بسوريا كمان بعيدة عني. دوم بقول يا ريت لو هون، يعني ليش افترقنا. الرفقات عندي ورحت على المدرسة. هلا أنا بين اللاجئين، بس لما بطلع على الفرصة يعني بحكي مع الألمان، ورفقاتي أوقات بقول لهم يعني احكوا ألماني، بنحكي مع بعض ألماني نتعلم. الألمان هلا بس بيسألون من وين انت وشو اسمك فتشوا حقهم، يعني حتى لو انت يجوا غربة على دولتك يعني بتقول ليش اجوا مشان شو مثلا. يعني باجي انت هلا انت تكون تجي وتفجر حالك، ما بتعرف شو بده يصير، وهن هيك بخافوا كتير من هالشغلة. بخبروا ان انا جاي من سوريا لانه في حرب، نحن بشر وانتو بشر، والارض يعني الله خلقك على الارض، ما قال لك هي ملكك، يعني مو لك لحالك، لكل العالم، مو للدولة ولا للدولتين، هي لكل العالم.
In the first video, we got a vivid first-person account of life on the move through the eyes of a child. Support for people in this precarious situation is most often humanitarian in nature, but what else might be possible? How might expanded and adapted social protection mechanisms better protect her and her family and support the communities through which they pass? In the second and third videos, we had an opportunity to see young refugees successfully integrating and even helping others. Although unstated, it's likely that effective social protection measures played an important role in those encouraging stories. And finally, when seeking to expand social protection for any constituency, policymakers will often meet with skepticism about its effectiveness from politicians and indeed from the general public. Such arguments are often all the louder when it comes to marginalized groups and indeed to newcomers. The final video helps us to respond to these myths with fact-based lessons, a useful message for our work, and a reminder of the value of making good use of evidence. I did want to make a note that it was rather accidental that the three in-person videos were about Syria, but of course were about Syrian refugees. But of course, since the numbers are so large and there's been much of a focus on it, their stories are there to be told. But indeed, these are universal stories, and they were meant to be presented as such. Now, let us move on to our plans for today. We have three parallel sessions this morning, which will provide us with examples and lessons on the use of social protection systems to support displaced populations in a wide range of countries and contexts. Session 2A focuses on thinking longer term, Actually, I think I won't give you all the detail about it that I have here, because you have the information available to you. Maybe just to say that the examples presented are from Lebanon, which, as we know, has received the largest influx of displaced persons in comparison with the size of its population of any country in the world. There are three presenters from the government itself, WFP and UNICEF, and that session will be held in room 312. Session 2B will be held here in the ARC and focuses on meeting the commitments in receiving countries, taking into account the opportunities and limitations for extending coverage to refugees and internally displaced groups. And that 2B will focus on Turkey and include is organized by ECHO and DevCo together and includes presenters from the government of Turkey, WFP, and the Overseas Development Institute. Translation, important to note that for that session, which will be held here in the ARC, there will be translation available for French and Arabic, as well as Turkish. If you choose to attend that session and you do not currently have a headset and you don't speak Turkish, please get a headset. If you'd like to be able to hear it. And then session 2C is an innovative session which is focusing on social protection of displaced persons in urban contexts. And this is quite important. I mean, we've seen that with the latest flows especially, how a large proportion of refugees are integrating in urban areas. What are the differences in social protection in those contexts? So this session will look at these issues and has presenters from Iran and Ecuador, as well as research-based presentations by UNICEF's Office of Research and the World Bank. Following the parallel sessions, you'll have chances to compare notes with others over coffee, and then we'll move to our second plenary session, which will, of course, as yesterday, review and bring out the lessons that we've learned from these three sessions. Some other things might happen over coffee too, so I'll come to that in a moment. As mentioned yesterday at the start, we do intend to have an outcome document from this conference, really an expression of what we have learned and how we would like to take it forward. So that, the draft of that document will be made available to you during lunch, towards the end of lunch today, for your review and reflection. It will be available electronically, so all of you who have been able to access Wi-Fi, please do try and download it that way. But we will also have some paper copies available for those who haven't been able to access it. We will then have our second, so after lunch, we will have our second speed networking session, which will take place in 311 and 312. And then following the afternoon coffee break after that session, we will have our final high-level panel. You don't want to miss this. I know that this is only a two-day conference. I know it's a Friday. We hope, and we have requested everyone in various messages to please stay till the end, and not run and get on your planes. Those of you who unfortunately do have plane tickets that take you out of here earlier, I guess there's nothing we can do about that now. But this is where it all comes together, and where we look at what we've learned, what we've concluded together, and how we're going to take this the important findings of these discussions forward. In that final high-level panel, we will have speakers from the development community, from humanitarian community, and from representing governments speaking. And those speakers and their colleagues will be consulting you, so this is why I mentioned the coffee break and lunch, for your ideas, because they will be trying to represent the views of all of us in that discussion. There will be some opportunity for comment, but it will be very important that you use the opportunity also to feed into this process through the colleagues who may come around and ask for your views at those times. So I hope that you will be open to speaking with them and sharing your thoughts. You can see the names of the actual speakers on the agenda, but also people from their agencies. I'm sure will be happy to talk with you. So one final point before we set up, really more of a housekeeping one, before we set off for the parallel sessions. If you go to 2A and 2C, or 2C, and find that it's full and that all the seats are already taken, please come back to the ARC. Rather than have people standing, all of the sessions I know will be fascinating and worthwhile, and we want to make sure that we have a balanced number of participants in all of them. And of course, do remember that you will also be able to hear all of this later, in addition to the fact that that the conference is being live streamed. It is also available. The live streaming is also going to be made available to watch later, so you'll be able also to view sessions later on socialprotection.org. So with that, and without any further ado, let me send you off to your next session, or invite you to stay here for session 2B.